Let's get to the draft. Jay.
Yeah, we sort of touched on it, guys. I'll start with my biggest takeaway, and then I'll ask you guys. I was shocked that not a linebacker was called.
When I looked at the linebackers that they had in the draft, I knew this was a draft where you couldn't find there wasn't very many impact linebackers or three-down linebackers. I was a little surprised that they didn't take a flyer on somebody. I thought that they would, at least in the 5th or 6th rounds or the 7th round, take a look at a linebacker. And then they traded the 7th round pick, traded the 7th round pick this year for a 6th round pick next year with the Ravens.
Jason, what's the logic behind doing that?
No one on the board that they felt was going to make the team. So not going to waste a pick, kick can down the road, and try again next year.
Because now we have the numbers, and this is kind of off the topic, but there's a severe numbers game. Like, you mentioned that receiver. At receiver, when you look at who's on the roster, there are guys that you know that are going to have to fight to make this roster. There's 12, 13 receivers today on that roster.
We don't have a receiver room. We have a receiver auditorium.
Yes.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, they got a bunch of
And what are
dudes.
they going to keep? 6?
Maybe 7?
I mean,
Maybe 7. Well, it depends on the punt returner they signed last year. If he's back healthy.
Jakeem Grant.
Yeah.
Jakeem Grant. Is he? I don't remember if it was a 1-year or 2-year deal now. I think it was.
It's 2.
I think he's still on
I think
roster.
he's still on the roster. Yeah,
He's
okay.
Must
still
have
on
been
the
a
roster.
2-year deal.
So that's going to be 1 because you imagine he's back as the punt returner.
Okay. So off the top of my head, you just got Tillman, right?
Well, you got Cooper.
Start at the
Let's
top.
Start at the
Yeah,
top.
start at the
So you
top.
got Cooper as the 1, DPJ maybe as the 2, Elijah Moore. Those are your 3 starting receivers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Grant makes the team, you also brought in Marquise Goodwin.
He's a good
And you
part
just
of
drafted Tillman.
Yeah.
And you've got Bell sitting there. And Schwartz, who wants to tell him?
I think he knows.
Does he know?
I think he knows.
I mean, he's packing a bag and coming to camp.
I think also that means Demetric Felton. You were a punt returner. You were a running back. You did have some. I think Demetric Felton is a casualty. I think
I'm leaving out some names too.
Schwartz is a casualty. There's a lot of what's does Dalen Baldwin on this team?
Michael Woods, who's injured.
He's on IR, so he won't count towards anything.
What'd you think of the Tillman pick?
I see what they was going for. I was hot because Jalen Hyatt was sitting right there.
Yeah, I know.
And they jumped up and
One
grabbed
pick
him.
ahead of him.
One pick. I would have preferred the speed guy myself. Now here's the problem I always got people. When you talk to people, and everybody's a draft expert, right? Y'all ain't watched no games all year. They ain't watched nothing. The draft experts and everybody come out, especially for the Browns. And I know what it is. We all are to a certain extent Kool-Aid drinkers when there's guys on the board that we all like or there's guys that you may have wanted. But I've heard some crazy things like, oh, this guy was actually the best receiver. I had him on my board at number 2, and I'm like, stop. Please
First of all, do you have a board?
You do not have a board.
If
Come
you
on.
do have a board, seek help.
Yeah, talk about your board.
Seek help if you have a board.
Only board you got is a Scrabble or Monopoly joint. Now, at the end of the day, I like his size. He's not going to be a blazer. He struggles a little bit to get off press man coverage, doesn't really separate at the top of his routes too much. But he is a long strider. He is 6'3". The Browns don't have
From a size standpoint,
from a
I loved it.
size standpoint, he could be a red zone target. I think he's of the mold of a DPJ, but a little bit bigger. I don't have a problem with the pick. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's a 3rd round pick. I can't give A's and all this other stuff because I think when you start at the 3rd round, you're taking this class pass fail. It's pass fail.
I agree. I think just because you don't have the capital at the top of the draft, the best you can hope for here is a B. As a total grade. We'll get to those later, but how are you going to get an A if you're not picking until 74 wherever they went? What do you like the pick?
I mean, the first thing I thought of when I saw him was red zone target.
Yeah.
So if you can line him up in the red zone and he's a back corner fade route guy and go catch it at the high point, sign me up. Why not? Because we saw DPJ struggle with what game was it where he struggled with that exact play. Back corner of the end zone, and he didn't catch it at the high point. It was a 4th down play, I think, and then batted it down. So if he can do that, automatically he's going to get on the field.
And by the way, that's the same kind of guy that can move the sticks. You run
Absolutely.
that same route
Sure.
to the first down marker. And so if he is strictly a possession and a go up and get the ball kind of receiver, that's fine. There's a need for that in this system.
And I don't know if Tillman can do this or not, but I know one of the things that the Browns were focusing on was when plays break down, when Deshaun starts to freelance, he needs receivers who can react. And they felt like the guys they had in the room last year were not great at freelancing. But if you can get in a jump ball scenario where Tillman can just out-jump the guy, he's just got bigger size, and Deshaun can make a play, I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't have a problem with the pick.
I like the pick. I think that's about as good as they were going to do.
They certainly have not had a good track record on third-round receivers.
No, they have not.
So we'll go back to the well and try again.
Yeah, see what happens. I've got to think that, I mean, I know Bell's just a year in, and you really hate to give up on a guy a year in who's a third-round pick.
Yeah.
But you almost have to start making decisions here that are you're going to have to let somebody go that you at one point really liked.
And that's a good thing. That really is a good thing.
It is a good thing. It's
because last year they were in a position where they held on to Schwartz because there was no one obviously better. That's part of it, was there was no one clear-cut better to hold on to. Well, now if you're building depth on this and you're putting yourself in a position where Schwartz probably is not coming back, I don't see that as a bad thing. I think competition and depth, there's nothing wrong with
Mike?
that.
So I have a good friend of mine who I worked with back in Tennessee who is now the sports director at a TV station in Knoxville. So I called him right after the Tillman pick and just want to add a tiny bit of context to what he told me as someone who's known Cedric for the last 4 years, watched him and kind of saw him develop.
That's the kind of insight we're looking for.
So he was injured this year, and he's had some injury histories throughout his entire career at Tennessee.
And that scares me.
Which is something you do have to take into consideration. But last season, 2021, he was a second-team All-SEC guy. He was their number one option in the pass game in Heupel's first season. And you got to remember, Tennessee was pretty terrible under Jeremy Pruitt his first 3 years at Tennessee. They bring in a new coach, Josh Heupel, completely opens that offense, playing with Hendon Hooker. He was a second-team All-SEC receiver as a junior, over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. And he said the one thing that has been consistent in Tillman's career, from watching him in practice, games, warm-ups, he's out on the field level for the up-close and personal. He's like, this dude's a basketball player who plays football. And as Jason alluded to with jump balls, he does a really, really good job at high pointing and winning contested catches. Which when you look at the rest of the Browns receiving core, they didn't really have a guy like that.
They don't have a guy like that.
We look at the ranks. He was ranked as highly as 59 or 44 according to Warren Sharp, and as low as
And we're guessing the slip was because of the health issues.
It's injuries. It's can he stay healthy?
And speed.
Yeah, he's not a burner.
And he's not a burner.
But that's okay. I still think that's okay. I mean,
I do too.
If Goodwin makes the team, he's a burner. I don't think Schwartz is going to make the team.
No.
Goodwin can stretch defenses. You need slot guys, and I don't mean to play in the slot. I mean guys that run precise routes that are going to be where they're supposed to be on timing routes. That's Cooper. You need a high point guy. That's probably, we hope, is going to be our new wide receiver. Speed guy can be Goodwin. DPJ can do some things. So if together you've got a bunch of guys that can do a whole bunch of things, it makes the offense a lot more wide open.
It's just, you're just diversifying the skill sets you got in the room. So, maybe, you could go, with 3 wide receiver sets. You can go with a big wide receivers. You can put him in the game, DPJ and Mari Cooper. You can go with a bunch formation, 3 receivers, and you want quick guys that can, really get open in man-to-man coverage on linebackers or safeties. You can go with Goodwin. You can go with Elijah Moore. You can go with even a guy like David Bell. So there's a lot of different – you just basically at this point, you're just searching for – a few things you like, a couple characteristics. If you can get somebody that got a characteristic that you lack, you go take it. And you say, okay, well, we'll see if we can develop it, and then we'll figure it out from there. But, it's not like these are first-round picks, and these guys aren't going to – if we counting on these dudes to play significant minutes, we're in trouble. Because –
yeah, they're mostly situational guys. Yeah. I was a little surprised that we took – a defensive tackle and a defensive end after all the free agent signings we made on the defensive front. I know you can never have enough guys, and I guess it's Philly. I don't know that is Philly at the front wave of that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what they did last year, and then what did they do in this draft? They went and made themselves even more dominant at that position.
Yes.
GMs will often tell you to win in the NFL, must have a quality quarterback. You must have quality guys that get after quarterbacks. Philadelphia really drove that home last year, and it doesn't surprise me that the Browns are going that way because Jim Schwartz was in Philly when they were building that team this way. This is a strength in numbers group. They'll be able to rotationally keep these guys fresh, and Jason, that's the new it thing in the NFL.
They've never had the depth up front. I remember when Larry Ogunjobi was playing like 97% of the snaps. Like, it's insane.
Right.
And Miles was out there far too much. And they've never had enough depth up front to be able to roll guys in waves and keep guys fresh. And I think that's what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
I'm not at all surprised that they drafted one of each. It was by far, especially in the middle, it was clearly one of the biggest weaknesses of the team. They addressed it in free agency. They've also addressed it in the draft. And again, every year since they've been here, they've taken a defensive tackle. Was it 4th round and higher? I think we said 3rd or 4th round and higher. It's the only position that they've done that every single year.
It's clear that whether it's Dee Podesta or Andrew Berry, somebody in the organization is in love with doing it that way, with strength up front. And someone in the organization forgot that there's a position of linebacker.
Man.
Like, it's really they had 5 guys end the season last year on injured reserve. And when you look at the depth of the position right now, it looks like it did last year. They haven't added anybody.
If they have a couple injuries and guys get injured again, they're gonna have to hear that. Like, they got to hold that. Next
season could be what the defensive line was last year.
It could be.
Next year, everybody could be saying, well, what do you expect?
Well,
you had no middle of your defense.
And plus, all those guys have been injured. Like, they've been in. It's not like JOK has not been injury prone. If Phillips has been injured his whole career. Anthony Walker has been injured a couple years. Like, there's not like these guys are like, those were aberrations. Like, those were legit things that you could say about it.
Is that a product of the NFL going to the undersized linebacker? Like, you don't see guys 245 anymore at that position. They tend to be around 230, and I haven't followed it closely enough to know if this is, I don't think it's an epidemic across the league, but last year our linebacking core was wiped out.
I think it's a product of how your scheme and how terrible you were up front. So, like, linebackers are not supposed to be dealing with offensive linemen, like, every single play. Our defensive line was so bad that now you got undersized guys that are either getting hands put on them or always in the fray. Or think about it, even if you're a linebacker, here's how you know the linebackers was taking a beating. Look at your top 2 tacklers.
Yeah. No, I know.
Your tacklers are safeties. That means
they're getting to the 3rd layer of the defense way too often.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And plus, we'll talk about the Eagles a little bit. These dudes, I mean, they have Brandon Graham. They drafted Jordan Davis last year, who's the biggest dude I've ever seen. Then they still got Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat. That's their first round, right? That's their first wave. They got Hassan Reddick. Then they drafted, that's the outside linebacker. He's more of a, stand-up rush guy. Nolan Smith, that they just took. He runs a 4.3. And he's like 250. Jalen Carter,
he was supposed
to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
And he was supposed to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
He's probably the top pick in the draft.
I don't, like, these dudes are freaking stacked up front. Like,
that's as good as it gets.
Like, you not really running. Like, I commend them because they could have just stood pat and just said, we cool, let's tweak some stuff here, and we'll get back to the draft. We'll get back to the Super Bowl because, we got it. We got our quarterback. That's all we need. These dudes just kept going.
They're also drafting for replacements. They know in Fletcher, they've got some guys that are aging out.
Yep.
Graham, Cox.
Yeah, Graham and Cox. Yep.
So they're already thinking ahead. They're drafting their replacements now. In the meantime, you get all of them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really difficult for opposing teams to step back in the pocket and hope that you're going to get 3.5, 4 seconds to throw the football. It'll never happen with this team. They're going to be in your face from the time they get off the bus. This kid from Baylor, Siaki Ika.
He goes by Apu, by the way. No one calls him Siaki.
Okay, Apu.
APU. I learned that. I also have a friend who works in Waco and covered him. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So I'll give you the insight on him at the end, but he goes by Apu.
So, I mean, I only know of this kid what they said about him on draft day. I don't even know that I watched Baylor play extensive games this year. He certainly wasn't a guy that stood out to me when I did watch them, if I even saw him. But the guys, nobody seemed to think that they were over their skis with this pick. And
a lot of meat.
He's a big run stuffer. Isn't that what he is at the end of the day? And that's where we have been.
It's just hard to move
really, really woeful.
Can't move him. You put him and Tomlinson in the game, I feel like you're not going to be able to just have guys block him and chip to the next level. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to keep two people on him.
Yeah.
And then that's where you hope the speed and athleticism of your Phillips and JOK can get back in the backfield and get to tackling people instead of being in the third level of the secondary. So I think he's a big dude. He's a traditional nose tackle. He has a little bit better pass rush upside than people give him. Not because he has a bunch of plethora of moves, it's because he can collapse the pocket.
He just bull rush.
Yeah, his bull rush is dominant. So
that's a great shot there.
Now look at that leverage. Now think about it. Look how close his knee is to that ground.
He's low center of gravity, right?
He is very low. You cannot move a guy. And the great thing about him is he got over 30 quarterback pressures in the last 2 seasons when he was playing for Baylor. He was a transfer from LSU. So he played on that national championship team. So he has a good pedigree. He's strong. He's strong as an ox, got a bull rush. He's very stout on the run. Somebody said, well, you telling me that he's Danny Shelton then? I said, well, no, not really necessarily. I said, because Danny Shelton was a top 20 pick. You got this dude at pick number 98.
Yeah, but I think not in terms maybe of quality of play right now, but I think Shelton to me was the natural comparison when I saw him and watched a little bit of his tape. He does resemble Danny Shelton.
He does resemble a whole lot.
Now, if he can be as good as Danny Shelton, I think that would be a huge home run for us at that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we said, pick 98, you're just looking at if you can get 1 or 2 downs from this dude,
he's going to play.
1 or 2 he's 1 or 2 downs and then get him out cuz it's a no gain or a 1 yard gain and bring in some other guys to rush the passer.
I would think he'd play a lot on first and second downs, run situations, and then in passing downs he'll probably be off the field. Jason, what was your biggest takeaway? If you had to write a headline for this draft, what would the headline be for this draft?
Browns moved away a little bit from what they've done in the past.
I thought so too.
And I don't know necessarily that's a bad thing.
What I felt they were doing was, I don't want to say they've abandoned their old analytics priorities, but to me it felt like the kind of player that they had been drafting and the things that they were looking for from those guys, they didn't follow that script this year. And by the way, I'm glad they didn't, because it hasn't worked.
Yeah, and we talked about it at length. There's a lot of pressure to win, and I think that they went and got guys who they may not be starters, but they're going to be on the field. Tillman's going to be on the field. We just talked about red zone situations, third down situations, points where he can help them. He has a unique skill set that can help them. They got a massive bag of meat in the middle now that they didn't have before that can help them. He can provide the depth. So I think they were very targeted in the positions, and I know they didn't go after a linebacker. I was a little bit surprised. I think it's probably more of the nature of the way that the board fell than trying to dismiss that position, but it has been devalued in the NFL. Like, linebacker is the running back of the defense.
No question.
And you're only playing 2 on the field.
You still need them.
Yeah, I mean, you used to play 4. And now there's
some teams did.
Yeah, now there's instances where you're only playing 2, and most of the time.
The Browns clearly like to play 2.
Yeah. If you're in nickel 90+% of the time, and you've got your 4 up front, you're only leaving 1 or 2 spots. If the meat up front can clear the way, and it's a big if for guys like JOK. We saw something out of Taki when they moved in the middle. I'm curious to see how they use that information this year.
Right.
Where is Taki going to play? Just because he seemed to be a different player when he was in the middle, but now that position theoretically isn't open.
I think the thing that I'm falling back on is maybe I'm trying to convince myself that things are going to be okay. But the one thing that I believe in is Jim Schwartz and his system. I think the chances that he gets it right with the personnel they have in the middle of that defense, are much higher than Joe Woods getting it right. We saw Joe couldn't get it right.
Yeah.
I think guys, what they admitted on the sneak, I think they admitted we were wrong.
Yeah, I think they did too.
We did not have the right philosophy.
It's a pivot.
They tried to turn over multiple position rooms. When you look at the defensive tackle room, they threw so many guys in there because they said these aren't the body types, these aren't the necessarily skill sets that we want. And when you draft that many receivers, what you're telling yourself is, hey guys, look, we missed on those guys. We need to do something to infuse some other stuff because we've had back-to-back classes that's been a little bit of subpar. And I think they're admitting to people in their moves and their actions that, yes, we were wrong on a lot of these guys. We're looking to get some guys in here with a different philosophy.
Yeah, I felt the same thing. And look, I give them credit for this. Sometimes GMs are so stubborn that they refuse to change what they're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the desperation that we're seeing here is that Andrew Berry said, okay, I had a book, I went by the book, and it didn't work.
Yep.
And so now we have to open ourselves up to the idea that we may have been wrong and that there may be a better way, and I think this is what we saw here. Now, if it doesn't work, it's going to look like they're grasping at straws, and they're probably still all going to be done. But at least, the definition of insanity, we all know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go down that road one more time. Mike.
We're going to get to the day 3 picks here in a sec, but we have a new sponsor I need to tell you guys about.
Oh,
Lorraine
exciting.
Community College is officially on the UCSS train.
Nice.
Best decision they've ever made, and this is the best decision that you can make if you don't have a college degree and want one. Check out Lorraine Community College. Your class is your future. Register now for summer and fall classes. You can learn more at lorainccc.edu to learn more.
My alma mater.
Yes.
I went there.
Did you really?
I did. I did 2 years there. Got a pre-journalism degree. Everything transferred to Kent. If you want to be like me and make up things about Donovan Mitchell, go to LCC.
I like that.
We will get to that in a bit. I promise.
I love that.
Stand down on that
Jason.
point.
That's crazy.
Real quick, though, for everyone out watching,
Never
we got
made
a
up
ton
a
of
thing
people.
in the world that you've written, anyhow.
Ton of people tuning in, watching right now. We appreciate you guys. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button.
Absolutely.
We're going to skip Dawand Jones and the day 3 stuff. We're going to
Yeah,
end
we'll
our
come back
draft
to him.
coverage with Dawand Jones. So
Yeah.
when you see us skip that, we have not forgotten Dawand Jones. We will get to him as it relates to
'Cause
Jed
that's an
Willis and his
interesting
fifth-year
pick.
option. We will get to that, I promise. But let's start with Isaiah McGuire, who was their first day 3 pick. We'll run through the rest of them, and then we will end with Dawand Jones.
What did you guys make of that? I'll be honest, never saw him play, knew nothing about him at all. I've read extensively about him since. I've heard all the comments that the guys made on the telecast. This is your area of expertise, so I'll let you start.
So shout out to the Locked On Browns podcast, your team every single day. So we featured Isaiah McGuire as part of some of the defensive ends that might be available with the Browns. Picks.
You had him on your list then.
So, when you do a show 5 times a week, for every day, you got a lot of people on the list. It's a lot of hours to fill. So Isaiah McGuire, he's the prototypical.
First of all, you love the single digit.
Yes, he had a single digit. So then when you look at it, you're like, okay, I got to watch you now. He had the number 9. So he's a prototypical size, 6'4", 6'5", range, 270, 272, 274. The thing about him is, I think he's going to be one of those guys that is really good at stopping the run. He's kind of in a way like Jadeveon Clowney. He's not as athletic, anywhere near as athletic.
He's long, right?
Yeah, more of a 4'7" guy. But he has a really good upper body punch. Like when he punches, he can separate. I think he's going to be good in the run. His bull rush is his best move. His bull rush and his motor is actually his best 2 attributes. So anytime that you don't have any other mix-up moves and you don't have the level of bend in your knees to run the hoop and really get low to the ground, low centrifugal force to get to the quarterback, you're going to slip to the 4th round. But there's one thing that he really does very well, and that's motor. He's very strong. He can disengage. He's good mobility in the box from left to right. He's not going to be a huge pass rusher. I think he only had 5 or 6 sacks his second year wild starter. But, when you can get a guy like this who can help and contribute, I think you build the depth. Now you say, okay, I got Isaiah Thomas, right? I got Alex Wright. I got Isaiah McGuire. You have Obo out there. So you got now those young guys that are kind of jockeying for that position. because you want to spell Myles Garrett too. Myles Garrett, you want to get him off the field. So now you say, okay, well, let me see what Alex Wright can do. I want to see if Isaiah Thomas is going to be that type of position. And this guy is in the mix. He's a guy that I think can contribute today if you're just using him as a pass rusher. So I love the pick. It's another depth pick. And now you kind of see, once again, you don't have Chase Winovich's out there just moving around, just doing nothing. You're starting to get a little more depth, and so I like to pick.
But in all fairness, Chase Winovich coming out of Michigan was
a
prospect.
beast.
Yes, he was.
Like, we
was
thought
nice.
this kid was going to be a player.
Yep.
And then I don't know
And he
what
just
happened.
did not pan out.
Yep.
I don't know. He just was like, he got a little
He
weird.
was all hair, no game.
Yeah, he just started growing his hair.
Looked like Tarzan, played like James.
My goodness.
Do you like it, Jay? I mean, I think if nothing else, what they've done is taken their area of weakness last year, and I'll give them credit for this. Clearly, it was the defensive line.
Yeah.
That's going to be the most competitive position group on this team this year.
And that's what I like about it. And I even say the same with receivers, what I said earlier. There's nothing wrong with competition. So bring all these guys in, and the best guys get the spots. And I don't know that we necessarily had a lot of that last year, especially across the defensive line. I don't know that there was really a lot of camp battles and position spots and spots up for grabs. And you're going to have that this year. And, you know, a guy like Isaiah Thomas, I don't know, is he a sure thing to make this team?
No.
You know what I hope they do, Jason? Teams rarely do this, but here's what I hope they do. I hope they put these guys out on the field and forget about where they drafted them. Just take the guys that can ball and tell them that going into camp. I don't care if you were a first-round draft pick. I don't care if you're Myles Garrett. He's clearly going to make this team.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate it, and at the end of the day, there's going to be 8 of you that climb to the top of the mountain.
I think
And I don't care where you came from and where you were drafted. The 8 best are sticking with this team.
I think they're finally set up to kind of do that. Before, you saw a lot. What you would see was traditionally with the Browns, because they were drafting people to help them out, and they had people that they drafted that they thought was going to play very pivotal roles with the organization
Right away.
Right away. So you already got a guy slotted. Then what happens if he goes out and pulls a hamstring, tweaks this? He misses the whole training camp. Now he's behind the 8 ball. He's out of shape. He really doesn't know the playbook. And now you're going to have to use the regular season to ramp him up. Now I can say, look, hey, Isaiah Thomas, Alex Wright. I think I like Alex Wright, but I might not. You might not be better than McGuire.
Right.
We're going to figure out today in this. So now you got guys who know they can't miss practice. You got guys who know they have to show up to OTAs, because now there's competition where, look, Jordan Elliott at one point in time was given the starting defensive tackle role. They got Hill, they got Hurst, they got Ika, they even got Tomlinson. That's 4 right there. You still got Perrion Winfrey. You still got Tommy Togiai.
Well, for now.
For now.
Yeah, I think Winfrey's a dead man walking.
So we're going to get to this.
Him and Schwartz can go
Winfrey
apartment shopping
We're
together.
looking at USFL teams right now.
Listen, hey, Boogie, you might have a new teammate.
So, I mean, I also think that Schwartz is the right guy to judge this talent. He's not coming in with any baggage and preconceived ideas. They're all new to him.
Right.
And I hope that the Browns give him the keys to this entire thing and say, here's your pile of clay, build your statue, and the clay you don't use, we're getting rid of.
Oh, I think they will. I have no doubt that they're going to tell him.
He's the head coach of the defense, right?
You have full control, full autonomy. Who you want is who we keep. Who you don't want is who goes. And I think for the most part they do have the may the best man win mentality. Outside, listen, if you're a first-round pick, obviously you've got a little bit longer of a leash. The fact that there is no incoming first-round pick, you're probably not going to have that. I do think it's going to be very much a competition and very much I'm kind of looking forward to it, especially at that defensive end D-tackle spot. It's all sort of wide open. You would imagine Tomlinson's probably going to start, right? They gave him the big money deal. But outside of that, who's starting next to him? Can we say with 100% clarity who's starting next to him?
We can't.
I kind of like that.
And the other thing, too, is, and we saw this with Philly, like, you can have 1s and 1As.
Yes.
Because this is more like
Philly
hockey
has 1 Cs.
than it's like football. It's amazing how,
Right.
Back in the day in baseball, your starting pitcher was your pitcher.
Right.
And he went all 9 innings, and then somebody looked around and said, there's got to be a better wheel. Why are we working these guys, letting them go through the lineup 4 times? They're tired. The game is in the balance in the 8th and 9th innings. What if we brought in a fresh arm from the bullpen and it changed baseball forever?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that it's taken this long to get to the NFL, But this is a max effort position.
Yeah.
And these guys only have so many fires in their body every Sunday. How many times can you stoke that fire?
And we see it with hockey, and I know nothing about hockey.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you're sending in a new wave, a new line.
Hockey, it's like every 2 minutes they're on because they go so hard.
Because it's 100% max effort.
Yeah.
I remember when I was young and I first started playing hockey, I hated the fact that I ever had to leave the ice. I don't want to come off the ice.
Yeah.
And then the more I played, I'm like, get me off the ice. My tongue is hanging out. I'm dead.
Yeah.
And so you really get, and football is the perfect sport to do this with. Because, yes, there is, in hockey, there's no time between plays. You're constantly moving. But in football, because that is such a max effort position on every single play, you wear out. And the fact that now they're going to have a 1 and a 1A unit, and they're going to mix and match, you're going to see, kind of like in the NBA playoffs where they talk about combinations. The Browns are going to have combinations of guys. And who did that better than anybody I've ever seen than Jim Schwartz last year? He perfected this thing.
Now can they play?
Yeah,
can they play?
It sounds great.
But you know what?
Can any of them play?
Instead of getting 4 guys at maybe 65% in the fourth quarter, they're going to have 8 guys that are at 80%, and you can fill and mix and match with combinations. And I think it's brilliant, and I think it's going to work.
Coaches always say, don't save yourself. You say, what does that mean? There's a lot of dudes out there that will take plays off because they are tired, because they want to stay on the field. We don't need that. If you're tired,
we'll get
off the field. Then you come back and you give me everything you got on the next rep.
Right.
I think that's, in last year we saw guys with the hands on the hips and Atlanta running the ball 14 straight times and they tired, they suck in air. But guess what? You didn't have nobody to put in.
Right. Who are you going to back them up with?
That's all you had.
The head scratcher for me, guys, was Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, as a player, I did see him a lot this year, and I loved him. I absolutely love his grit. He's got that. He's not going to lose. He's going to do whatever it takes to win. But I was shocked that they drafted a quarterback. Was Dobbs just a one-year signing? They usually are.
I'm not at all surprised. I think I said on the show that I thought that they might draft a quarterback.
Well, then he's the heir apparent. Like, he is.
He's the backup.
He's the backup.
If you can get a guy who, I mean, Chad Henne was a lot higher of a pick. I think he was like a second rounder, actually.
He was a second-round pick.
Okay. But it's the same type of concept. If you can draft your backup, develop him, he knows the system, you can plug him in if you need him, you're not spending a ton of money there. We've said it before, if Deshaun goes down, the season goes down with it. You don't want to invest a ton of money in the backup spot. But if you can have consistency in that spot, and he's a dual threat in the same mode as Deshaun, so he fits that role perfectly, if you can get 4, 5, 6 years out of him where he knows the system inside and out, for the 5th round, I have no issue with this pick.
I thought that was a value pick.
Yeah.
I thought he would go higher than where he went.
I think now you're finally seeing it. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching Ohio State play the spring game. And Kyle McCord comes out, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, who is this guy? This is not what it is. And people say, oh, no, G. Bush, listen, give him a chance. He's going to, like, you guys are just so negative against. I said, no, listen, what y'all don't understand, this is a philosophy. When you look at Ohio State, you got Dwayne Haskins. You look at, after that, they have Justin Fields. Then you get another quarterback, C.J. Stroud. All of those guys have a certain level of arm talent, certain level of throwing the ball. So if you know what you excel at, you know what type of mold you have at quarterback, then you got to set up your succession plan so that when one guy graduate, we got another dude that's already running the same kind of stuff, could do some of the same things. Because guess what, Jay? What if you got linemen that are sophomores, juniors, returning guys? Now, they're used to playing with a Fields. They're used to playing with a C.J. Stroud. And guess what? When your new quarterback comes in, because they have similar traits, everybody's on the same page. We're running the same we got to go to more of a balanced attack. And I think this is exactly what they did with the Browns. You look at this guy, by the way, I just call him DTR. I can't be memorizing all your last names. DTR, my man, they brought him in. And the great thing about it is, now you look at it, you got Josh Dobbs, you got him, and you got you got Deshaun Watson. Of course, these guys don't have.
It's a nice quarterback room.
They don't have the same skill sets as Deshaun Watson at that highest level. But guess what? If you are now looking at this mix in 4 guys, it ain't a Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson discrepancy. I can run the same offense. These guys are mobile. They can move their legs. They can move the pocket. They can all improvise. And so now, if one of them goes down, guess what? The game don't stop. We still running the same offense. And what happened, I think they made a conscious effort of saying, we loved what Jacoby Brissett was able to give to us, but the offense from those 11 games to the 6 games was night and day, and we saw how we took a step back. We want to have continuity, so all our guys are similar height, similar weight, similar skill set, and so if something happens, we run our program regardless. This is what we run.
Yeah, I like him as a player a lot. I don't know that if you wait much longer, you're not going to get. What I like about him is he's comes from a program that he's played in big games.
It's a big-time program.
Yeah. I'd rather go that route than, a McNeese State or North Dakota State where you're like, yeah, but what was the competition they were playing against?
5-year starter.
At least this guy, he was playing a lot, and he was playing against really good teams. The USC-UCLA game, I don't know if you guys watched it this year.
I watched that, yep.
I mean, that alone,
crazy game.
I just remember thinking at the time, whoever gets this kid's going to get a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I never in a million years thought it would be us, so I'm glad it is. The last 2 picks, Cameron Mitchell is interesting. He's a corner from Northwestern.
Teammate of Greg Newsome.
Played with Newsome at Northwestern. And because Newsome was a home run, I still think Newsome was one of the better draft picks of this regime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Emerson as well. So I'm not even going to question this pick. I think they've proven that they can draft defensive backs.
They know what they're looking for.
At a high percentage.
They know what they're looking for.
So I think they got him another one here. And then lastly, they got the big offensive lineman from Ohio State.
Yeah. And
when I say big, I'm pretty sure.
No, before we get to Dawand, they also took Luke Wypler, the center from Ohio State.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get to Dawand Jones in a sec. I have a read before that. Jason and G, real quick thoughts on the Mitchell and Wypler picks, and then we'll do a read, then we'll get to Dawand Jones.
All right.
Mitchell.
Depth. Go ahead.
Depth, slot. He could play slot. He could play special teams. I think it was a reverse Jedi mind move, right? Hey, we could draft any corner in the world, right? Well, who you want to bring in? Well, Greg Newsome's been mad a little bit. Let's bring his boy in, right?
Yeah.
So now he comes in, and now he has this guy there, and now he's going to tell him, hey, man, if you want to make this team, bro, you got to get on these special teams. You got to learn to be versatile. You play inside and outside. And quiet as kept, that's what he should be telling himself. So I think it works 2 birds with 1 stone. It's always good to get a familiar face in the room. Wypler, I thought would have went higher. He came out early. I think if he would have stayed another year, he could have actually been rated higher and been a 3rd round, maybe even a 3rd, 4th round pick. I like what he is, but he's more of a project. But I do think that move signifies that Nick Harris might be not on this roster as well.
Yeah.
You signed Ethan Poches. This guy only plays center, right? And Nick Harris can play a little bit of guard. He's done some things too. So I think this move. But
he's a 7th round pick, though. I mean,
but
yeah,
you're not afraid to cut a 7th round pick.
No,
but I think this is.
I mean, let's face it. We thought Harris was going to end up being the starter.
Right. I don't think.
I think this is a camp battle.
I disagree with that.
I think this is a camp battle.
I think Nick's on this team. I think Wypler's probably on the practice squad. He's one of those guys. He's a depth. They did expand practice. You can hold more guys on the practice squad now. So we'll wait and see.
Can either of you remember? I can't. A time when the Browns drafted 2 Buckeyes in one draft?
No,
we don't draft Buckeyes.
I don't think we've ever done that.